Hello, everybody, and welcome back to NINJAGOCast. Today we got some fun discussion coming at you from Ninjago Crystallized. Before we get there, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I am Sensei Wolf.
I am LJ.
I am Meso.
I am Sakota.
I am AJ.
And joining us today, super special guest who, believe it or not, was with us last time, or not the last time, but the last guest we had on NINJAGOcast. Speedy returns! Welcome, Speedy!
Hi, it's me again.
It is you again.
It is you again.
Great cat TTV picked up at Brook Fair.
You're the cool cat, all right?
Cool kitty.
Yeah.
Hold on.
We
Cool cat is
basically
someone.
adopted you.
Cool cat is someone completely different. That is not appropriate for conversation on this podcast.
Bruh.
Bro. Yeah, we basically adopted Speedy at Brick Fair. It's pretty funny.
Speedy managed to speak all of our individual languages, like an unhinged manic energy with Meso, obviously Lloyrumi with Haley, and she gave me a Dareth card, like a Dareth Ninjago card, so I was won over.
My
Good
bribery
times,
gets
good
me
times.
places.
My goodness. Well, thank you for joining us today, Speedy. We're very excited to discuss. Obviously, if you've seen the title of this podcast, we have quite an interesting discussion at hand today. But before we do that, let me do a couple of the good old plugs.
Woo!
Yeah, to make Tyler happy. Yes, we are the TTV channel. If you would like to learn more about us, you can head to our TTV message boards to like join our community and discuss and fun stuff there at was it board.ttvchannel.com.
You got it.
You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/the channel. If you want to help us out for like $1 a month, you can join our wonderful Discord server. Everyone in the Discord server, say hi. Hi. That's where we do our recordings for podcasts. You can join like the pre-show, post-show, and other fun activities. And then you obviously can follow us on Twitter at the TTV channel for updates and for podcasts and more.
Very well done. Thank you.
Yay! Okay, so that's us. We're that. Other things, obviously, all of our NINJAGOcast reacts are up for all of Crystallized. You can check that out. Our big podcast, the one that's like almost 5 hours long, discussing the whole season in kind of like the good, the bad, and ugly. That is also up on our channel. For
The jury's still out, short of like manually checking every single video we've ever made, but I think it's the longest one we've ever made.
Yeah.
Including all of our alt channels. Someone mentioned it's longer than the last part of our Danganronpa Let's Play.
Wow.
Apparently Pryor held the title.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
Not by much, by 4 minutes.
Wow.
But still, which,
That's impressive.
and I think the more impressive aspect is that we're still not done talking about it. We weren't able to say everything we wanted to say.
Yeah, we didn't have everybody on who had opinions. We had to
even after the
consolidate.
podcast, we're like, oh man, we forgot to talk about X, Y, and Z.
Yes. I remembered some stuff afterwards I wanted to talk about but forgot.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, if you want to check that out, they have some timestamps in there for like the good, the bad, the ugly, and other things. So you can check that out. And finally, I want to do a quick shout out to the Ultimate Ninjago recap, which yesterday passed 150,000 views. Wow.
So crazy.
Nice.
If y'all haven't had a chance to check it out, I would definitely recommend it, even if nothing that was in the recap set up Crystallized. It's still a fun way to celebrate where Ninjago has been and see the growth and funny recaps written by LJ and myself. So it's quite a fun video. So
It's an excellent video, and I'm increasingly happy with how well it's doing.
Yeah.
I should be very proud.
So
It just keeps going. It just
Indeed.
keeps going.
Indeed it does. All right, so it is now time for Crystallized. We're going to quickly take a moment for the two people who didn't have a chance to join for the last podcast to talk about what they thought of Crystallized in full. I'd like to start with AJ. AJ, give us your what you would have said on that 5-hour podcast if you were there about your overall thoughts of Crystallized.
Oh boy.
I think
I didn't like
think
it.
man, AJ, you're like Nia's biggest fan, and Nia had a whole arc this season.
Aren't you
What do you
happy
mean?
that
You
she's
did-
back? Your favorite
Yeah, aren't you
character?
happy?
No. I'm enraged. Fuming. Livid. Ugh, this season makes me feel the same way Prime Empire did, where I walk away, and the more I think about it, the more angry I get. You know, just just the more stuff that just doesn't add up, and the more annoyed, and just like, how? Why? For what reason? I mean, just that's really just general thoughts. Just not really happy with a lot of it. Like, animation and comedy has been alright, but like everything else, I'm just kind of very unhappy.
Very reasonable.
Yeah.
Not an unpopular take to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Is there was there one thing above the others that you would say, like, what was something that you hated the most, and then what was something that you really liked?
The thing I really liked was just like the one episode with Christopher. Like that.
Yeah.
Just that episode was. I have no faults with that. It was good. I liked it.
I went back
Um,
and rewatched the reacts, and AJ, you were like giggling the whole time.
Yeah.
Like
funny.
it was a funny episode.
We love Garmadon and
He's just the
shenanigans.
best. Like
He's so good.
I can never hate Garamadon. He's always just great. And then in terms of like thing I disliked, definitely Nia. It's top.
Yeah.
It's always gonna be Nia. It's
Yeah,
never gonna be anything else.
that's so sad because like last season it was the best thing, and now it just like
Yeah.
just
Now
tanked.
it's the worst. I'm in pain,
Oh,
suffering, agony. But
well,
yeah.
we are definitely going to have AJ on for when we do the Nia discussion for Crystallized, because I know AJ, you
absolutely.
have a lot to talk about with Nia. Unfortunately, we don't have the time for that today.
Mm.
I'm talking about the other female that was absolutely disgraced in this season today, but we will get to that in a moment. Speedy, we have yet to hear your full thoughts on the entire season of Crystallized. I'm Speedy, you love Lloyd, and this was a Lloyd season. You've got to have loved it. Let us know, what did you think?
To put it lightly, I hated it.
Oh, no. Wow, I'm so shocked. This is such a.
Oh boy, man. Okay,
We have
2 for
such a
2.
varied opinion smorgasbord.
At this point, we need to find someone who actually really enjoyed Crystallized about the podcast. this is now 6 for 6 for NINJAGOcast, people who just don't like Crystallized. But Speedy, talk a bit more in depth about your thoughts of Crystallized and why you hated it.
Where do I even begin?
Good question.
It was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Like every other episode felt like, well, it did. Every other episode had a different writer, but it really felt like it.
Yeah.
Really, really felt like it. And then the ending was just like, why?
You weren't satisfied with how they treated your main man, Lloyd?
No.
Tim, LOLYD.
No. He hates you.
What do you mean? The 25 seconds of Oni Lloyd was base, though, right?
No.
I'll do the same thing that I asked AJ. What was something that you really, really liked from Crystallized, and what was the thing that you hated the most?
The Wu fight. That was
Yeah.
pretty epic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I did really enjoy how they handled Wu this season, which is rare for me to say.
Mhm.
True. Pretty good.
I don't know what to talk about. I hated the rest of it.
I guess the rest of this podcast will definitely dive into probably something that you hated the most, which might be related to either Lloyd or the girl that we speak not of in this moment.
Hashtag the building.
The bill.
No, the building.
Retconning the building. But cool. And then finally, I want to give a moment for the four of us, Tyler,
Oh.
Sakota, LJ, and I. It's been almost a month.
Yes.
How have our thoughts kind of shifted, changed? How are we kind of doing?
That's an
I know
interesting
Tyler,
question.
you've hit a creative kind
Well,
of thing, and you've been making a lot of videos recently. I mean, if anyone goes checks your videos, you're like, wow, you have like 50 new videos that all have the same thumbnail.
We all process things differently. I think you made a comment, Haley, along the lines of like how we all process, grief and disappointment in different ways.
We all cope in different ways.
There you go. Some people get sad. Some people swear off, the franchise. Some people stop wanting to talk about it. Some people get bored of talking about it. I decided, well, one of my biggest complaints is that the Inner Steel song doesn't really fit, and it feels insulting, and it feels very out of place.
Mhm.
Like it tonally just doesn't match with the rest of the show. And I thought it would be funny if I like overlaid another song over, the outro, sorry. It's actually Speedy who gets to take the credit for this, because we were talking one night and she was like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if you put the Dance of Doom over the outro? And I was like, you know what? That would be funny. So I did it. And then I didn't stop doing it. I have such great hits as Bring Me to Life, Sweet Caroline dubstep remix, Big Chungus orchestral remix, the Chug Jug Fortnite song, the Rumbling from Attack on Titan, the Legends of Chima intro, and my favorite, In the End with Linkin Park, featuring such tonally appropriate lines as In the End, it didn't even matter. I was gonna stop at 36 because the meme I thought was like, okay, I have 36 videos on my channel released over the span of 13 years. It'd be funny if I just like equaled that, so it'd be 50-50. But then I kept getting requests, so I'm still doing them. Like I did a Miku song,
Mm-hmm.
I just keep going. So who knows when it will end. This is on my personal channel.
That's how Tyler's coping.
Yes, Modern points out I'm doing some of them twice because I'm like, oh, it'd be funny if I did this part of the song, but it'd be funny if I did another part of the song. How about you guys?
I'm on rewatch number 3 now. This time in German.
Ouch.
I'm just trying to make things work in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I predicted this when I first gave my thoughts on Twitter, that I'm probably gonna accept some of the stuff over time, and I think I'm getting there right now. I get some of the things they were going for, even though I might not agree with those decisions.
Yeah,
but
intent
there's
versus
also
execution.
Yeah, but there's also other stuff I just find that kind of upsets me, the whole characters not having appropriate reactions to other characters that are in those scenes, for example.
Yeah.
So
Fair enough.
some things I like more than I originally did, some things I like even less.
Fair enough. Elge?
My feelings and thoughts haven't really changed, I'll be honest. Granted, I haven't been thinking about it quite as much. I've been busy with other things. But it's still really difficult. And it sucks, too, because it's really just that last episode that really burns. It's episode 30 that just really kills the rest. Because everything up until it was very enjoyable. Maybe not Ninjago at its best, but certainly, some high highs.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. I've been watching some of the community responses and reactions. I've been seeing people making tier lists, and some people put Crystallized down with Hands of Time in F as the worst season.
Fair.
And no, I don't agree with that. this is not as bad as Hands of Time. Hands of Time was a categorically bad season in almost every aspect, with perhaps the exception of voice acting. Everything else for Hands of Time was just wretched. I can't watch Hands of Time. I could watch Crystallized and enjoy it.
I have a really hard time, like, if I wanted to try to rank Crystallized, because, like, I enjoyed part 1 a lot. Like, I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Part 2 I also kind of liked, but then the last episodes, it's falling apart. And if you, like, rewatch the seasons, you can see the cracks, like, going through
That's
the earlier
really
episodes,
what it
too.
boils to for me. Like, I don't actually think it's that insane to put it in Hands of Time tier. I wouldn't myself, but it all hinges on how you feel about because this is an ongoing discussion with media, how you place writing versus everything else. Crystallized is better produced than Hands of Time in every conceivable way. Yeah. But I would argue the writing is worse.
I mean,
so
the
if
dialogue
you're someone that
writing
really values like plot, you know, I wouldn't say
the writing's worse than Hands of Time.
I can't say I enjoyed 29 episodes and only one is bad with Crystallized, because now I have to be like,
you have to go back and look
for me, the well has been poisoned. I don't enjoy part 1. I don't enjoy part 2. It's spoiled. Hands of Time, for all its faults, its ending wasn't really one of them. It's had a pretty solid
Hands
ending.
of Time is like really bad.
Yeah, the dialogue is bad. Also, it's insufferable watching Kai for half of a season.
No, yes, you're right.
Oh, where have I seen this logo before?
Don't get me wrong. I don't actually think Crystallized.
Who could Samurai X possibly be?
It's a very stupid, very juvenile.
Samurai X being like, I have to hide my identity to protect those that I love, even though all that I love are also people that are ninja and fight with me. I don't have any civilian friends or family.
Okay, this is not turning into a
I agree completely. I'm not actually saying
we're not talking about Hands of Time.
I'm closing it out. I don't think Crystallized is worse, but like I get the line of thinking. Crystallized is more destructive, I would say.
Yeah,
you can forget Hands of Time.
I think you worded it really nicely with Poisoning the Well, because we were enjoying Crystallized. Like, we were even saying, like, up until 28, we're like we're enjoying these episodes. I think Return to the Ice Emperor was one of the biggest kind of like episodes for us, but other than that, like, we were having a good time. And then just because of how it ended and seeing how the payoff never came for everything that was being set up that we were looking forward to, that inherently was like a domino effect, and then you knock down the big domino, everything else falls down in the rest of the season.
There were others we thematically didn't really enjoy, like the Return to Primeval's Eye, which we're probably going to talk about a lot today.
Yes.
And that were like kind of like symptoms of where things were going.
The cracks.
So like if you rewatch it and in retrospect, you can see kind of some of the problems forming earlier on. But for the first viewing, like you gloss over some of these things, and then like in the end, you're just surprised why it went down like that.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I think that's a good segue into our discussion for the day.
Yes.
So in our original podcast, we had, it was 5 hours long, and we had the big four, which were the big four uglies that we just really, really did not like from Crystallized. We didn't have enough time to talk about all of them. Today, we're going to focus on two of them, believe it or not, because they go really, really hand in hand with each other. Their names even get pushed together sometimes, and people get canceled over it. But today, we're going to talk a lot about how Lloyd was handled in Crystallized, especially near the end, as well as Harumi in full and her return, what she added to Crystallized, what she took away from herself from past seasons, and then how it kind of ended with them. And then because of how integrated he is with both of these characters, we will also talk a bit about Garamadon. There may be some spoilers for Garamadon issue 5, because there's some stuff that was introduced in that issue that we might be talking about. So
Yeah,
just
it's some
be wary
interesting
of that.
timing.
Interesting timing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we'll
wasn't
definitely,
aware when it came out. I
yeah,
had no clue.
we'll definitely have a separate podcast about the Garamadon issues, or the comic series. But for now, we're going into Crystallized because we have a lot to talk about that, and we don't want to like skip out on it right now. So just know that we might talk about the comic book series a little bit. Be wary of that. But yeah, let's talk about Lloyd. Because he's such.
He's fine. There's no
He's-
issues at all.
Is there
He's
really
green.
no issues? He's green, yeah.
It's epic. He's green, right? Speedy,
So-
isn't he green?
Yeah.
Green's cool.
He's green,
So
and
cool.
sometimes gold. Sometimes
Who doesn't
looks
like
it's
green? No.
good.
I wonder.
The issue I find is that, and I think this is like just to kind of put this out there to like set the table for
Mhm.
this discussion. I feel that I've said this before. Lloyd was a very good character in the Will film era, consistently.
Mhm.
Sons of Garmadon was really good, but it also it took him completely off the rails, and it
Yeah.
kind of put him on a completely different kind of character path,
Mhm.
which has encompassed his entire character. I would argue that since 2018, Sons of Garmadon, Lloyd's character has been inextricably linked with Harumi. And basically every single plot he's had except March of the Oni is kind of tied with Harumi. Sons of Garmadon and Hunted are all about Harumi.
Wow, now that
Fire-
you say that, oh my
You know,
gosh.
Ice chapter, he's like stressing about Harumi. You know, Master of the Mountain distrusts Vanya because of Harumi. I guess the island, he didn't really talk about Harumi.
Prime
But-
Empire too.
Prime Empire, all
Harumi.
about Harumi. You know, stressed about Harumi. And now this, so it's all been building to this, right? I guess you could say. Question mark. How'd they
Mhm.
stick the landing?
Well, you can look at our thumbnail. It's funny that now that you say that, I'm like looking back, and I know that Speedy's probably not happy about this either, but almost all the times that he's had like a character arc,
It's all about Harumi.
it is somehow tied to her.
It's annoying. It's not even like a character arc he should be going through either.
No?
No,
Like
it really isn't.
he never got over his like trust issue problem
Yeah.
from.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the same thing that he's going through, like his whole like Misako saying in Sons of Garmadon that you're very, very trusting and you see the good in people, and it's like yeah, he does, and he works through that and Master the Mountain and stuff like that. All of that stuff that is like the character growth that comes from Harumi. None of it was used for Garmadon.
Yep. It's very frustrating
It
because
was very frustrating.
as much as I feel, personally, I was really enjoying the build up to Lloyd becoming like the master, the leader, but they did a pivot into like, oh, he had a crush on a girl, and I was like, okay, I can vibe with this. This is well written.
Mhm.
I wonder
Yeah.
where they're going, and I personally like this isn't really even just crystallized, but I haven't been happy with Lloyd in 4 years.
Really?
Hunted was the last time I think Lloyd was done well, in my opinion, and that's sad. March of the Oni, I guess, but it was also short and rushed. But I did like his scenes with Garmadon there.
Yeah, it was
But-
good in March of the Oni.
He has not really had anything since, and his writing and dialogue about Harumi was very juvenile, I guess you could say. If they
Yeah.
were trying to go with Lloyd's faith in people has been damaged because of his abusive ex kind of angle, I feel like it needed a little bit more gravitas. With Akita, it was like explicitly played for jokes. And
Yeah.
then same in Master of the Mountain, I would say too. All princesses are evil, Cole. Like that's yawn dialogue. So if they were gonna bring Harumi back, which was a choice that did not have to be made, but if they were going to bring her back, I would have really liked to explore that a lot more than I feel like we got.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel
I
like
don't
they
know.
hashed out the same dialogue every single episode that they were together. Like it was even up until the end, it was you don't have to do this, Harumi, and Harumi's just like,
I do.
but I want
Lloyd.
to. Yeah,
It was every scene.
it was every single scene. There was no growth. There was no changes in their dynamic. All and then literally the flip of a dime at the end is when their dynamic changed.
Take
but-
the NinjagoCast drinking of water game. drink a gulp of water every time Harumi says some variation of "You're so gullible, Lloyd.
Mhm.
You're so weak, Lloyd. You're so trusting, Lloyd."
Or Lloyd just going, "This doesn't make any sense."
Ugh.
I don't
I
know.
rewatched Crystallized right before this.
Oh, really?
We finished like 10 minutes beforehand.
Mhm.
And
What's that?
I was literally like, why does he keep saying this doesn't make any sense?
It doesn't make any sense.
This poor guy, just in a brain fog.
I don't know. AJ,
Ugh.
wasn't Harumi your favorite villain?
Yeah, she was.
Why was she your favorite villain? I'm curious.
Well,
Like, what drew
'cause-
her to you? What drew you?
Because like I think it's also to do with like because the tone of Ninjago changed when Harumi came around. You know, like
Yeah.
Ninjago's
Yeah.
always been like kind of got that kind of like young kid show vibe to it, which isn't
Mhm.
like a bad thing by any means, but it means that like a lot of the villains are kind of even when they're doing bad things, they're also kind of goofy and
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah. A little
And it's
surface
like-
level.
Yeah, and Harumi kind of came along and changed that, and it felt more like a serious thing because Sons of Garmadon felt more serious. So I really liked the arc with Harumi through like Sons of Garmadon and Hunted, and I was really hoping that when she came back they'd like continue it. But the issue is they can't have a villain that's so like not goofy in a show that's like reverted back to what it was when it was first,
Yeah.
like the tone's back to what it was, so they can't have Harumi being how she was in season 8 because it wouldn't fit, like it
Yeah.
would just feel weird. But seeing her act the same as other villains is like it just doesn't work, you know, like
Character assassination.
There's a
Yeah,
lot of
that's-
comedy.
That-
There's a lot of
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's
The
exactly
moment-
like why the volleyball team joke felt so out
Yeah.
of place for all of us, because like in the seasons that were like Harumi was primarily featured, they would have never done a joke like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The moment she had like said that, and then like a couple moments later she made like another remark, I was like, I am not going to enjoy this. They're
Yeah.
going to do something with her that I'm going to hate, and they did.
Mhm.
I'm really annoyed about it.
Mhm.
Because she was just such a well done villain. At least to me, she was the most interesting. Or like at least just there felt like stakes with her, and like I just didn't know where things were headed with stuff. But like
If they
now
had
it's
to
just
bring her
like-
back, which they didn't have to do, but if they had to, like, what would you have wanted them to do?
Well, in my head, I thought if Harumi ever came back, right? Because the way that they ended on Hunted was her, like, she had, like, helped another family, right? And
Mhm.
her about to die, she kind of looked a little, like, regretful. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I made a mistake. This was very stupid of me. So what I thought they would have done, what, like, made sense to me, was they'd bring her back and then they'd try and, because there's always been discussions about whether she deserves a redemption arc or something. But I felt if they ever did go that route, the best thing to do would just be her, like, I guess, just, I don't know how to put it into, like, words. Like, her, meeting with Lloyd and trying to work things out, I guess. Not
To
in the
find-
sense of them,
to
like,
find-
ever,
Yeah, I-
like...
To find closure or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think-
right?
Just
Yeah,
not
I-
in the sense of them ever like becoming a couple. I mean, just in the
Yeah.
sense of like I get it now. I made a stupid mistake.
Yeah.
I want to do good things or try and do good things, or she just
Yeah.
or like
It's
another
some
thought.
kind of acknowledgement about
Yeah.
the past
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
it
I
didn't
think-
work out.
Yeah,
I think the first problem they like immediately have when bringing back Harumi is her like she has her mini redemption at the end where she
Yeah.
kind of realizes, oh no, I created the same kind of monster that killed my parents.
Mhm.
And if you bring her back and the first thing she does is serve like another monster like that,
Yeah.
it immediately undermines that redemption arc. And if you
Yeah.
want, and it feels like she has not learned, she has not grown from that, and that makes it even harder to believe that like at the end she's really good this time.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
like
Yeah.
if you wanted to do Harumi redemption, you should have like gone from where she ended in Hunted and
Yeah.
not her joining the villains right again.
Well,
Yeah.
like, think what would have been good if they had decided that she'd join the villains again is she does it against her will. Like she doesn't have a choice in
Yeah.
it. You know?
Yeah.
Like if that had happened, that would have been so
what
much
I
more
thought
interesting.
they were doing.
Like
They had the
because
perfect opportunity too, because
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
she's like under the rubble, you can see like her eyes glow and she gets like super strong and she can push it away. They
Yeah.
could have just gone for, the Overlord controls her now whenever he wants to. But
Yeah.
that wasn't ever made to look that way, or that I don't
Yeah.
think that was the case because
I
she attacked
thought
him in the
that's
end.
what they were doing with the
Yeah.
glowing eyes, but they never did
Yeah.
it, so I can't use that as any explanation.
it
I don't
would have
know.
been a
I
lot
have
more
kind of a
fun.
hot take. Sorry, AJ, what?
No, I was just saying that would have been better,
Mhm.
definitely, than what they did, which was Whiplash Central.
Yeah.
I have a hot take,
Yes.
for it.
which is no surprise. I think that the problem did not start necessarily with her coming back. I think the problem started with Hunted. And I think that the issue of Harumi's characterization has been a problem that's been going on since, I would say, I scratched that earlier. See episode 8 of Sons of Garmadon.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm familiar with this.
I talked about this a lot on the old podcast, so I'll keep it brief. But after Game of Masks was peak Harumi.
Yeah.
I feel that after Game of Masks, she lost a lot of her nuance. She became very like evil for evil's sake. I want to destroy everyone. I want to rule everyone. She didn't seem to have a problem when the Colossus was rampaging, through the city in Sons of Garmadon, probably stepping on people and sending people, running for their lives. She had zero expressions of doubt, remorse, or anything when Garamadon was like out of control. She just kind of was going along for the ride and was chill, trying to like cozy up to him and become like his surrogate daughter. And then at the very end, without any kind of prelude, they had a very well done scene in a bubble.
Throughout
that-
the season, she started showing a little bit of regret and fear.
I don't
in
recall.
certain
I
moments.
recall her
There's-
doubling down.
There's a couple moments, especially like when Garmadon destroyed Mr. E, when he almost attacked her.
He almost attacked her too.
Yeah.
So would you say, obviously this is up to interpretation,
Yeah.
I recall those scenes. I did not see those as regret of her following this path. I saw that as fear for her life more than anything else.
I mean, it goes hand in
Still
hand.
be like,
It's
yeah.
like
think
fear for
it's
her
just-
life, and it's like, oh crap, maybe I'm wrong for doing this because this person that I brought back that I'm now scared of is someone who I'm responsible for bringing back to
Yeah,
life.
That's fair.
You have to remember that like Harumi wanted to bring back Garmadon in the first place because he's supposed to be like the super strong ruler that will
Mhm.
protect Ninjago, which
Yeah.
is what Garmadon wants to do against the Oni.
That's true.
But
Yeah.
and she does all those things for Garmadon to unlock his true potential, because she
Mhm.
thinks like he has to defeat Lloyd to do that. But then she sees like kind of how dangerous he is against his own people, against the city.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like that out of nowhere.
I
in
would
Hunted.
say that it didn't, even if she had those little pieces of regret, it didn't affect her decision making at all, because she proceeded to try to get closer to him. She
Yeah.
didn't like back away. She was like, I want to get closer to this person.
She tried a
Um,
different tactic, kind of the same way she did with Lloyd, where like she
and it worked.
was touching to the emotions and like, I would like to be your daughter because you wouldn't hurt your daughter, right? Sort
Yeah.
of thing. And so she did a different way of trying to find safety.
If they were going to do a Harumi like redeems herself through an act of sacrifice in the 11th hour story, I would say even in Hunted, it needed more setup. but I never really complained about it too much because in isolation, it was a good scene.
Mhm.
It was her realizing stuff, and then it ended with her death, so we wouldn't have to deal with it again.
So this is where I diverge a little bit from this because I agree it's a beautiful scene for Harumi. It's a great moment of closure for her. However, the reason why I left Hunted unsatisfied with Harumi's arc is because her closure is so closely tied with Lloyd that there needed to be closure on both sides. Because their whole thing in Sons of Garmadon was they were pretty much tied together the whole time. She was directly influencing him. He was directly influencing her, sort of thing. Like they were really, really working off of each other. And then in the final moment, we get that, they look at each other, quote unquote. Yes. You Speedy laughing here.
The building.
The building.
But it feels like we mentioned earlier in the podcast that like there needed to be a moment of closure between the two of them.
Yes.
So that Lloyd was aware of stuff that was happening to kind of close him off, to give him that closure, which is part of the reason why he's been rambling about her and worried about her, not worried about her, but like she's been the forefront of his mind for like how many years.
Closure.
He never got closure. He went back to look for her, even though like she was, evil.
Probably dead and evil.
Probably dead and evil.
I told you this before the podcast. I always thought like before Crystallized, that was like their three season mini plot for Lloyd, where he like in Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu, he's like still all upset about Harumi, keeps rambling about Harumi.
Mm-hmm.
Then in Prime Empire, he has to face her again and kind of accepts like, no, this is not Harumi, and Harumi betrayed me. And then in like Master of the Mountain, he gets reminded about it again, but he learns like not to think about that and associate it with other people. And I always thought like that was his way of dealing with it, and then it's over because there wasn't anything in Seabound or the island, but then they bring her back now.
And I think that it definitely helps, but we never got that moment where he connected it to Harumi, at least verbally, where it was like, oh yes, now I am overall good. These are lessons that he slowly learned over time.
Yes.
But we never got that moment of closure for him with Harumi.
I don't think he ever even spoke her name in Hunted after she died. I don't think he ever even like processed.
No, Cole mentioned Harumi.
And what did he say? She's gone.
No, he said like, he said, oh, I don't remember what he said. He was like, oh, is this about Harumi or something like that? And then Lloyd was like, no.
I mean, in Hunted.
Oh, in Hunted?
After she died, he didn't have any perspective on like watching her die.
I mean,
and like it clearly traumatized him because he went back to dig, but like we never got that moment of closure or acknowledgement. Now, of course, they had bigger things going on, but like it made for a kind of a hollow note to end on.
Yeah.
And I guess the reason I bring that up is because it's weird. Like they wrote her this season simultaneously, like she had a redemption arc, but also didn't. And that's weird to me because she didn't really.
I don't feel like they wrote her like she had. I feel like they just forgot about like
she had a couple moments of remorse in Crystallized, but it definitely it gets
they weren't connected to Hunted
by,
in any way.
Yeah, I mean, in her like in the Departed realm, she didn't really feel like she wanted to go back. She was just like, okay, I mean, if you're gonna give me another chance at life, sure.
I mean, I think what I'm really getting at is her being mad at Lloyd for not rescuing her. Like that's weird to me, and I mentioned it on the reacts that was weird because that's really like, I mean, stupid. I don't have any other word for it, but I realize why they did it. It's because in their mind, in the writer's mind, well, her resentment at Lloyd for the past is settled. It's over. She doesn't like hate him anymore.
I mean, but she
needs a new reason to be mad at him.
But she was still bringing up the Great Devourer thing the whole time, and that's like the original reason she hates the ninja, right?
I don't think she was bringing it up all the time. I mean,
she brought it up like 3 times, I think. She mentioned it when Lloyd was like in the cage. She mentions it like that's the reason she flips back again at the end. And she mentions one time that like my parents were taken from me, I lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair, I guess. It's just if they were trying to say, well, this is still Harumi continuing her arc, I feel like they should have, I don't know, reinforced that more instead of providing this other reason that doesn't make as much sense for her to have an attitude with Lloyd.
I think that line was in service of the flashback they wanted to do. They had to like somehow bring that in, that Lloyd went back for her, but they didn't really know how to introduce that without her being like, so why didn't you come for me?
I mean,
And
they
Lloyd's
said
like,
it
"Well, I
afterwards
did."
too. She was like,
they
"Oh,
did it
you."
afterwards.
It's like, why would I ever be mad, Lloyd? Is it because you left
that's
me
fair.
in the ruins of a building?
That's fair.
Of course,
Yeah.
I'm a little ticked off, which is
Yeah.
not how Harumi would ever talk.
Yeah.
No.
I think a lot of this would have been solved, and I obviously Hunted is, a far gone, and it's very hard to do.
It's also
Is
good.
if they moved the building a lot closer. Because if Harumi was like across the street and she fell and she like was able to look dead into the eyes of Lloyd and Lloyd watched her, then she probably would be ticked off about that if maybe like Lloyd tried and didn't, or like turned away or whatnot.
No, you know what Harumi should have said? She should have been like, "You could have saved me with your elemental dragon, Lloyd. Why
Oh my
didn't you
gosh.
use it, Lloyd?" And Lloyd would
What
have been like,
happened to your
"It's not my
air
fault.
jitsu?"
It's not
You
my
could
fault.
rescue
Tommy
your
and
air
Tommy and
jitsu, yeah.
Braggy and Hank was riding through the sweat."
Didn't he also
Ah.
not have powers at that time?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he didn't have powers. Good call.
That's fine.
He's just gonna
But,
stop a building with his bare hands.
Good. He's green.
When we just mentioned Hunted, there's one quick thing that's about
Mm-hmm.
Harumi, a little bit about Garmadon, but Harumi had that whole arc about bringing like Garmadon's true potential, and he needs to unlock his full power by defeating Lloyd, which I assume is
Yes.
his Oni form, right? She has like no
Probably.
reaction to seeing Garmadon in his Oni form.
Agony.
She also had no reaction to seeing Lloyd in his Oni form.
I want to
Also,
die.
she disappeared during the Oni Garmadon scene.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
so
wait.
weird that she had like no interactions with Garmadon, even though he's like a very
Yeah.
much a connected character to her.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can talk about Misako and Garmadon. We can talk
Oh,
about
God.
freaking I don't even other characters that didn't have
There's a
interactions
lot.
or whatnot. There's a lot, but
I had a question for Speedy.
go for it.
I know your opinions on Lloyd and Harumi because we meme it all the time. But I'm just curious to like set a baseline for discussion, right? Back when you were watching Sons of Garmadon, what did you think of it? Like before it's been kind of poisoned over the years. Did you ever like them? Did you like her as a character?
Oh no. Literally, it was so obvious she was the bad guy from the moment she appeared. Like,
Bruh.
like legit, I was like, I hate this.
Okay.
Really? Wow.
And this was also, you have to remember that this was right as I entered the Ninjago fan base
Yeah.
because I saw the
Yeah.
movie and then this like came out immediately after. So, and this is the only Ninjago season I have watched air like normally, like not leaked. So I watched it like a regular person should.
Impressive. I wish we could all be so lucky.
Mhm.
Okay, so you were basically like checked out personally,
Yeah,
even
I
back
was-
when the writing was better. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's been just a gradual like fall ever since, huh? Okay.
And
So-
I
so-
haven't seen it since then. So
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
You should remedy that.
I've only seen Sons of Garmadon and Hunted like once.
That
Wow.
surprises me.
You should remedy that. They hold up pretty
No.
well.
I think
Why not?
Game of Masks I think is one of Ninjago's best episodes of all
It
time.
is.
I agree.
Just because like you get to see like the gravity of the situation hit Lloyd all at once. And it's like you can feel it in his voice that like a lot of the stuff that he has seen in his life, he like even like her line about you really think no one got hurt that day, and you can kind of realize it's like, oh crap, all of the things that the ninja have done, like there's been stakes this whole time that we just haven't really realized because our narrators, the ninja, haven't really like talked about it or haven't really
Yeah.
like noticed it. And it was a really big moment. And to have Lloyd kind of see the one thing that had brought him joy in that season was now trying to stab him in the back.
It's an interesting point you raise. I don't think we've ever discussed that angle in all the like years we've talked about it. We praise that scene and we praise the flashback and we praise like the stakes, but like we had no reason to assume anyone died because we didn't see anyone die. But now we know people did die. It makes you wonder how many other potential Harumis there are out there.
Yeah.
Who are plotting revenge actively
imagine
right
how
now.
many people drowned
I mean,
in Seabound.
I hate to say this, but Ninja, there's something I haven't told you.
Oh no.
That is basically the basis of Wu. Like, he has made so many villains in his life that just keep creeping back, that has been planning revenge and whatnot. It's the same for the ninja, and it's the same for Harumi. Harumi was a coming out of nowhere because of something that the ninja caused.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a very interesting, again, it's a very interesting scene because you get to see for the first time not only how it affects Lloyd, but how it affects the viewer. The viewers who watch that scene way back in the day and are like, I love that, the Great Devourer was awesome. It was so cool. Such a big finale. And then to all of a sudden realize, oh my gosh, that snake probably killed like thousands of people.
Yeah. I mean, it never even occurred to me watching it for the first time that anyone would die. Because like, why would they? It's a Lego.
It's,
it was cool to see years later.
But again, now we go to Crystallized, and there are, there are no stakes.
No stakes.
Sadly, like it just feels like that deeper feeling in your heart when you're watching that, especially like that Harumi really made you feel in Game of Masks. Like, you could tell that she was hurt and that she had a lot of trauma and she had pent up anger and whatnot, and it was validated in some areas, not the stuff that she did, but like obviously
she had reason to be annoyed.
She had reason to be like, really mad at Lloyd. I felt like all that vanished in Crystallized. Like, I didn't really feel it anymore.
Also,
I
talking
felt
about
like it vanished
stakes, Harumi's death was like one of the few very like sticking deaths with a lot of impact, which now got reversed.
Sad. But you hit the nail on the head, Haley. That's what I mean when I say she's written worse in Hunted. It's not like there were any plot holes or anything that she did that was like whack. It was just, I felt like instead of seeing Harumi become like a cult leader with a red face paint and like, resurrect Garamadon to like rule the city, I would have liked to see her kind of call out the ninja and hold them like personally accountable and make them like reconsider their actions because they like, I mean, it's the friggin' Civil War arc from Marvel, you don't really realize the consequences of being like the superheroes until you have people in your face saying that my relatives died because you had a flashy action scene, and that's an interesting thing to explore. And I would have rather seen like more of that.
And I mean, I liked it in True Potential because that's kind of what she did. She baited Lloyd to come face his father as a way to say like,
yes,
you don't stand a chance against him, and you know whatnot, and that was very good.
And she turned it into a public spectacle to
basically to show the world. She called them out, as like you said.
It was a good scene.
It was a good scene, but I feel like all of that was lost. And I think Hunted is just an interesting season because if Harumi had been built up a bit more, then you would be balancing 3 major villains in one season.
You're right,
and
that's why they did it.
That is unfortunately a crime, because I would have much rather more Harumi than Iron Baron, but that obviously you need to have a villain for the ninja.
It's the nature of the split focus. It's difficult. I think overall, don't get me wrong, Hunted I think has aged like a fine wine. I really like Hunted, but it's not perfect.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about the past, go finish.
Hunted did all the things Crystallized couldn't. That's my hot take. They had the end where Lloyd refuses to lean into anger and wins that way. They had the Harumi redemption arc, but they didn't let her live. They had the main ninja all have important stuff to do and act in character. They had the ninja allies, including the elemental masters, help out in the final battle.
Oof.
Hunted did everything Crystallized wanted.
It even finished with the weekend whip.
That's so depressing.
Yeah.
It did.
That's so depressing. Why?
Well, it didn't actually finish with the weekend whip, but it was very close to finishing with the
I'm
weekend
so
whip.
Yeah.
They had
mad.
the scene afterwards. Yeah.
When you put it that way.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about the past, let's now look back into Crystallized and see kind of, how what Harumi is in this season.
Stupid.
Her her interactions with Lloyd in
Dumb.
particular. There were a couple bombs that were dropped this season, such as the Overlord calling out that she might actually have feelings for Lloyd.
Okay.
It's weird.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Of all, well, I mean, it makes sense logically as to why she would be reticent to let him die. It's more just like
It's a big question that I said, I think, earlier, where she, when she came back, immediately went after killing all of the ninja and all of their allies. That was like the first thing she did, and within
Nah, that-
2-3
that's-
episodes.
Yes,
Well,
but not
well,
in
with Lloyd.
universe. Because
Well,
in
not in
universe,
universe,
she's been
she
like
did the-
plotting the Vengestone
Yeah.
stuff for
Well,
years.
to Lloyd, the
like,
first thing
months.
she did when she was with him was, "I'm going to kill your friends. I'm going to kill your family."
yes.
And
Yeah.
the whole point of what the Overlord is trying to do is to destroy the balance and whatnot. And at that moment in time, the only person that stood a chance against them was Lloyd, who was literally right there. So why didn't they kill him? They had, at that point in their heads, they had killed everyone else. They were like, "We're good to go. There's nothing that the Overlord can, like, there's no one who can stop the Overlord." Lloyd was
I mean,
still
the
there.
Overlord wanted
He
Lloyd
wanted-
on his side.
Yes.
Now the question is, did the Overlord want it, or did Harumi want Lloyd on their side? And she might have talked him into it, saying, "I can turn him, I can do this," because she
I would
kind of hinted that.
reasonably say that it was probably Harumi. That was probably their bargain or their deal.
The way it
Mhm.
was portrayed in the show, it seemed like the Overlord wanted Lloyd, but then like Lloyd kept resisting, so he said like, "Okay, now you can just kill him."
Yeah,
But Harumi didn't do that.
yeah. And this is the same thing that happened with, like, Sons of Garmadon, that, Harumi never said, "I want to destroy you." It was, "I want you to suffer," which is a very interesting difference. Remember, she's traumatic.
I mean,
She's got, like,
she wanted
got-
Garmadon to kill him.
Oh, that's fair.
In
That is
the end
fair.
of Sons of Garmadon and Hunted, because he'd achieve his true potential.
That's fair.
I think the problem here is that no matter how much any of these explanations might make sense to any varying degree,
Mm-hmm.
it's not what the writers intended.
Oh yeah, originally that was not what they intended.
At
No.
any
Harum-
point, I'll
Harumi
be
was-
honest, I don't think at any point the writers had these thoughts in mind while writing
It
this
is very
character.
clear that
I
Harumi
agree.
in Sons of Garmadon and Hunted never had any feelings for Lloyd. It's in the
You
canon
can't
book
make an
says-
argument for
yeah,
it.
the canon
Yeah.
book says it.
Yeah.
The show, Lloyd is like, "Did you ever have any feelings for me?" And she's like, "No." So
Yeah.
it's
I would
very
say
obvious.
the text and the subtext and the facial expressions and everything, there
Mhm.
was never even like that thought never even crossed my mind upon any rewatch that
Mhm.
she actually would, except for the very end. I have seen people say like, "Oh, they had a moment." That wasn't how I read it. I read it
Yeah.
as a regret of her actions. But some people try to be like, "Oh, they connected at that moment as he watched her die."
Mhm.
Means you watched a random building fall over.
As he watched the speck fall down to the ground.
Mhm.
So now for that to be a thing and for the Overlord to casually be the one to first like verbalize it, I made this comment. There's something profoundly weird about like Scott McNeil and his voice filtered up dialogue, dropping this bomb, like spilling the hot gossip
Yeah.
about like
that
Lloyrumi.
That is the biggest bomb the show could drop in regards to Harumi and like all time. That is a big deal. I'd like to quickly notate the super chat we just got from Monarb for $2. Thank you, Monarb. Monarb adds to the discussion, the Overlord is a Lloyrumi shipper. That is all.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah.
The Overlord brought her back specifically with feelings for Lloyd because
AJ,
he was
Oh.
disappointed in the hunted ending and he wanted a Lloyrumi arc.
One of us. But AJ, what do you think about the whole, feelings and that whole subplot
I mean,
ending?
I don't love it really.
Yeah.
It's like you shouldn't. I mean, aside from the fact you shouldn't be encouraging relationships like that, like
Yeah.
ever. It's just like even throughout the season, they write her in such a like back and forth kind of way. Like if they really wanted to go with that route, right? Not that they ever should have, but if they did, why were they so inconsistent with it?
Yes.
Like every time we watched an episode with it, it was always like it's something changed, and like I swear, like I keep thinking about this arc, and I'm just like, even now, I have like no idea what she wanted, what she like the goal was. Like I don't.
Yeah.
She was kind of just there without any real reason other than like she's a previous villain and something for Lloyd, to like go up against. It's like
I felt they wanted her to be the emotional core of the season and to be the human voice to the Overlord's like goal, to try to make him interesting and not empathetic, but to be like, oh no, this is not your usual Ninjago villain fare. This is how Harumi sees it. She sees it as something like deeper. And they fumbled the bag on it.
They did horribly with it.
They had like her dialogue where she explains that like only with breaking the balance we can have peace. The dark is stronger, so I'm supporting the Overlord.
Yeah.
It just ends up feeling so hollow because the Overlord does nothing new in the season.
It also raises an interesting question. Like Harumi as a character is so like weird now.
Yeah.
If another like villain who didn't kill her parents comes along and is like, all right, I wanna end the balance, will you unite with me and help kill the ninja? Is she gonna be like, sorry Lloyd, my ideology, I gotta end that balance? Like, it's a joke,
Tyler,
but it also isn't.
That's a great question, and I feel like that could have been solved if her final lines in the show weren't Lloyd, are you okay?
Well, yeah, then that's why I mean
we have no clue what she's thinking at this point.
That's really my biggest problem, and that's why I keep like harping on that. If that big of a character turn, well, that's not the end of the story.
Yeah.
I want to see where she's at now. Does she have regret for her actions? Does she stand by her actions, but the Overlord was just the wrong, horse to back in the race? Does she accept the need for a balance? Does she forgive Lloyd for, blaming him for her parents' death? Like, those are all things that I feel. I don't think those are unreasonable asks, considering how big of a role she had. That's like the bare minimum.
I think a lot of my disappointment with her arc solidifies on episode 18, because that is the Primeval's Eye episode. And I feel like that episode we started with questions, and we started like, okay, so Lloyd just saved Harumi. They're in the forest together. Obviously, Lloyd is still trying to protect her. There's something going on there. And then we finish that episode and we're like, okay, what happened? What is happening? No, I felt like they went back and forth so aggressively. I couldn't even tell you what was going on in each of their minds. Harumi felt like an opposite character from the last episode, and Lloyd felt like an opposite character from the last episode.
Yes.
I rewatched that episode and some of the others before the podcast, and I took some notes. So what I think they were going for, what the story they were trying to tell is that Lloyd, like, he rejects leaning into the anger. He always sees the good in people, even in Harumi, and like no matter how many times she betrays him, and he fights to not be like Garmadon, which is like his greatest fear. The reason why I don't like I also have a quote here that's like the one scene where I think it's pretty obvious that that's what they wanted to do. It's like Lloyd says, "You're gonna pay Harumi, I will make you pay," and then Harumi says like, "Oh, there's that darkness again, just like your father," and Lloyd is like, "You're wrong, I'm nothing like my father." And I mean that all makes sense also with like the ending with only Lloyd.
Mhm.
Yes.
That was like the through line they wanted to do, but it doesn't really work for 3 reasons.
Mhm.
On the first one is that in the same season we have a Garmadon redemption arc. So
Mhm.
Yep.
like you see that Garmadon is not all evil. The second reason is that like Harumi just keeps betraying him and there's like no progress visible.
No.
So it feels more like he's stupid than he's like
Yeah.
absolutely good. You don't see any
Exactly.
progress. You don't see any reason to trust her. She just keeps betraying him, and it's just a bad message too to just like keep forgiving no matter how awful people treat you.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
the third reason is like her switch at the end is made out of selfish reasons, not because like Lloyd believed in her or anything. It's just he killed my parents. Now I'm against him.
Yeah, she had no switch. Like, she was very recently still trying to kill all of the ninja and Lloyd. Like, not even,
Yeah.
1 episode before.
Mhm.
So that's why I have trouble buying it. You're absolutely right in that analysis. What was the episode in the jungle? Is that Return to Primeval's Eye?
Yes.
So that episode, I think, who wrote that episode again?
I think it was
I think
It
it's
was Braggy.
Braggy.
Was it?
yes.
And did he write the ending too?
The last episode? Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that tracks. That episode, for as much as we put the blame on it, and I think it deserves it because it breaks continuity, that episode is the actual vision which they actually want for Lloyd and Harumi. That is the dynamic they have twisted them into having. It's Batman and Catwoman. That's all it is. It's Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle. She is a villain, quote unquote, but not like a particularly, grievous one. She's not a super villain. She's not trying to take over the city. She's like a thief. She's someone who stands in opposition. What are you talking about?
I laugh because while that is true for Crystallized, any fan who joins for Crystallized who doesn't know Harumi at all
I know.
is like, oh yeah, she's not that bad.
No, yeah, I know.
I mean, she still tried to kill all the ninja and their friends, right?
Trust me, we're on
Yeah.
the same page. But like,
That's
She
fair.
said
what I'm
boom
getting
while
to,
doing it.
Selena Kyle has been in many different stories. She's been allied with villains who are pretty serious for her like own goals or for her own purposes. But also in plenty of stories, she's like a love interest to Batman, and they like flirt with each other, and like, oh, he wants to be with her, but they're on opposite sides, and they go around. He tries to like arrest her. She gets the better of him. Yada yada yada. That's the dynamic they were trying to make for Lloyd and Harumi, and it doesn't work because, just like Haley said, she's not that kind of character. She's never been that kind of character.
Yeah.
She is just, no, that isn't her. She is one of the most serious villains there are. She's one of the most like, no, she's not, I want to take over the world, mwahaha. She's much worse than that, I would argue. She's much more grounded. She's much more intelligent, supposed to be. She's much more, I'm gonna make stuff happen and I'm gonna like tear people to shreds from the inside out kind of a vibe. Like, she's not one to mess around with.
It's because her anger with Lloyd and her actions with him are not backed up by confidence. There are villains who, when they are with a hero character, they can kind of like either joke off or they can, say all these things because they're confident. Harumi is not one of those characters that is backed by confidence. She's backed by trauma and anger for Lloyd for what he has done personally to her or what she believes that Lloyd has personally done to her. She would never be in the situation where she would be like joking around, flipping her hair, doing all this stuff around him, because that's what people who have confidence do. Doesn't mean that she doesn't have confidence. She'd obviously just have confidence, but that's not her relation, or that's not how she is, or
No.
how she what's the word
spent
I'm looking for?
years actively like plotting his destruction. You know, she has a
Yeah.
deep vendetta against him for a perceived wrong.
And that's
even
why
if
he,
even
go
if you
for it.
just watch Crystallized, she spent years getting all the Venge Stone, getting all
Yeah.
the council members.
Yeah.
She tried to kill all the ninja and their allies. She
She's pretty
built
dedicated.
the whole
Yeah.
army for the Overlord.
Yeah.
So
And that's
it's
why I
all
think
very high stakes stuff.
that's why I think if you compare some of the scenes from Return to Primeval's Eye to Game of Masks, you can really feel the anger that Harumi has in that scene. And even though she's kind of like quote unquote joking with him in some moments, where like she's like, "Ah, yes, the damsel in distress. You ninja really are out of your time." Like she jokes there,
It's a
but it's
mask,
not really.
and it
It's
slips
Yeah.
numerous times.
But
like
it's-
she
it's-
cracks.
yeah, it's not even like she's doing that out of like, cuz you hurt me and so I can joke around with like, haha, you guys are stupid sort of thing.
She's
It's not like,
enjoying the look
haha,
on his
I'm
face.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's stuff like that. While this is very much like, you know, haha, I'm the one in control, or you like me and I'm kind of using that
I'm gonna
sort of
mess
thing.
with you, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, again, there are some parts of that episode that work, but there's a lot of it that doesn't. Her like trying to like get him riled up so that she can try to escape is fine.
I feel
But
like that episode would have been perfect to have her have like some progress that hints
Yes.
towards a possible redemption at the
That
end.
was the episode
Yeah.
to do it. Like
Yeah.
instead of having stupid, unfunny banter,
Mhm.
that should have been the episode to have a conversation about like why she was doing this.
Yeah, they should have like had her have some doubts in the Overlord's plan, have like some distrust to what he's actually trying to do, or
She
her
should have been like,
actual-
I don't want, you know, to hurt anyone. I don't want to kill anyone. You know,
But the
my
Overlord
life
promised
was
peace.
destroyed by you.
Yeah,
yeah.
The Overlord is promising an end to all that.
and he's
You
too
know.
powerful to stop him anyway, or something like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know. Speedy, what would you have written for Lloyd this season? Like, would you have, like, I guess you just wouldn't have put Harumi in it at all, would you?
No,
like,
she didn't do anything.
She
What did she
was
do this season?
she was promised to add a big piece of the puzzle to this season, but they like took the piece and like threw it into the fireplace.
yeah.
I
Well, I
think
would've-
I've seen a lot of people be like, this person should have been the Vengestone buyer instead of Harumi, or replace Harumi with Klaus or whatever. I feel like it would have
Pythor.
been cool if it would have been Pythor, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he has a direct connection to Lloyd too. He's been like the villain for season 1. It kind of
Yeah.
would be like full circle.
And was
He's
the
an
last person
ally-
to serve the
like-
Overlord, yeah.
yeah, he's like an ally of the Overlord that like completely trusts him and
Mhm.
does everything for him. It would have fit perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And more Pythor is always great.
Mhm.
What would you have envisioned, Speedy?
Well, I wish they would have picked a route, because Lloyd's so bipolar every other episode. Like
Mhm.
like he goes through that whole thing with Garmadon about how Garmadon can't care, that Garmadon's a terrible person, and then he turns around and he's like, "Harumi, there's good in you. I know it."
You don't have to do this, Lloyrumi.
You're right. That is. Oh my god. That's
It's like,
infuriating.
come on, she threw a knife at your face.
Yeah, we keep relating that line back to Mistake, but you're right. It's even worse that he just like is so ready
Yeah.
to give Harumi another chance.
I know.
Oh,
I
Like, maybe I need to rewatch March of the Oni. I don't remember. I remember Lloyd being pretty annoyed with Garmadon. I remember like right after Cole like fell in particular, but
yeah.
I don't recall him
Yeah.
being that mad by the end. Like, I thought he cooled
to
down
be
enough
fair,
when
he
Garmadon
had
helped him.
just come back from life
He-
from dying.
He dies, yeah.
Yeah.
If
But-
he had some line at the end when he saw that Garmadon was just leaving and he was just like good riddance or something like that, then maybe that would have set up the season a bit more. But
Even then, like before Garmadon leaves, the last thing he does is like help out on the Tornado of Creation
what I
and
mean,
fight
yeah.
the Oni.
yeah,
Like he's not really like he ends up doing the right thing even in March of the Oni, which is the
Yeah.
last time we saw him.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
his anger is not earned, I don't think.
I mean, it's his anger is earned. They just explain it in a bad way. I could see Lloyd having years of pent up anger that his dad has been gone, only to like not like he didn't even like consider that it could be Garmadon until he came face to face with him, and then all those emotions just rushed into him. Seeing that number one, he's actually okay. Number two, he's living with some quote unquote random guy. Number three, he takes care of a plant and talks good about the plant and stuff like that. Like he is validated in his anger. It's just like the stuff that he was angry about was really bad.
I mean, that everything you just said should have been the dialogue.
Yeah.
Like his anger makes sense, but it's the way they wrote it which doesn't make any sense. And then he turns it right around and it's the complete opposite with Harumi when it shouldn't be that way.
I don't know. It rings very hollow for me because I feel that like the way it was written, if this was Lloyd at the beginning of March of the Oni, it makes complete sense. Yeah. Why would we ever work with my father? My father's evil. He can't be trusted. He'll never change. Just look at what he did to the city. But like March of the Oni did happen. It was short and it kind of sucked, but like it did happen. And stuff went down in that. Lloyd and Garmadon had an extended amount of scenes together.
Yeah,
there was some kind of momentum there, and I feel like none of it's really acknowledged. It's just you splice it right out.
I still stand on the ground that I think Lloyd is the most upset because he wasn't the one that saved his father this time, and that he may have in March of the Oni realized that his father was kind of uncurable or unsavable like he'd done before, and he just kind of saw him as a lost cause, and he's kind of written him off for a couple of years, and now that he's back in his life he has to like deal with that again,
and he has to realize that a random dude in a plant like helped him out.
He's like, well, not even like he doesn't realize that the plant could even work. He doesn't even like he thinks that his father's lying about the plant, and like the plant is just something that he's just saying and not actually feeling.
Right.
And he's like, it's because I am not the source. It's because I am not the person who is saving you that it's not working. And that I think would be a lot more interesting than you're an Oni. You're incapable of love, which is factually untrue by the show. But
dude, that whole thing, those lines of dialogue are so bad.
Yeah. That whole scene is bad. Like I really hate it when Lloyd brings up the birthday card. It's like y'all watched the Ninjago movie and then wrote this.
Dude, I just had a huge Twitter thread about the birthday card line.
It's
Again,
stupid.
I'm not mad at what that scene was trying to say, because his biggest fear is becoming his dad. That's fine. That is an excellent fear. That's a great thing that Lloyd could have. They were I can't even tell you how close they were to like breaking into some of the biggest Lloyd inner thoughts that they could ever do in Ninjago. Like this is 11 years of Lloyd and Garmadon. They've gone through so much. I mean, I talked about it briefly in the last podcast about how their lives have shaped up, going, our Garmadon's bad, now Garmadon's good, but Garmadon's bad again, all that stuff. All of that I felt like was about to happen in that one moment where Lloyd is now scared of becoming his father, and now he's talking to his father about it. And I'm like, here it is. This is the big moment where Lloyd is going to say something about how he actually feels.
But then they cut it off.
And he brought it up with a birthday card.
And then he cut it off.
It's like one of those things where like you're flying so close to the sun and you're just so there, and then the wings don't even just like fade, they just go pop and they're gone, and then you just drop. There's like, it's very much we're almost there and then it falls hard. It was really tragic. I was really looking for that big moment, and I don't even think we even got that moment in this season.
No,
we didn't really. Never. Yeah. I mean, AJ, I have a question. You mentioned you really liked Garamadon.
Yeah.
With the comedy specifically, do you think what do you think of the actual plot with him?
Not like great. It was definitely like reminiscent of the movie, and like his relationship with Lloyd, and like
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like movie Garmadon, but like that's movie Garmadon, you know, it's not TV show Garmadon. It's like I just I struggle to understand how we've come back around to this. Like in the context of the movie it makes sense, but then when you look at the TV show as a whole, it's like why is this happening exactly? Like where is this coming from? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the show tries its very best to forget that Sensei Garmadon ever existed.
Oh my
I think that's very inconvenient for them at this point that rebooted and Tournament of Elements
But
exists.
it could be their greatest ally. It literally could be their greatest ally because Lloyd is just fed up with this version of Garmadon because he's like, you are not the man that I want.
And that's all they need to say.
And there's nothing there's nothing that he can do to ever get him back. Yes. And that is just such a heartbreaking line.
Instead, they seem resistant to even bringing it up.
Yeah.
I've got the line from that episode written down. He says, "Every single time I've relied on you ever, you have let me down." Like, what the hell is he talking about?
I mean, he saved their butt in March of the Oni. Like, that was the last time they saw each other.
He saved their butt in season 4. He literally saved Lloyd in season 3 a handful of times. Like, oh my god.
He's had a lot of good moments with Garamadon. Like, it's just weird to me. And sure, you could say, like, oh, well, his memories of old Garamadon are being, like, tainted by new Garamadon, but that's exactly it. They could say that. They're not saying that. They could.
Yeah. And I agree with what AJ said about the movie Garmadon sort of vibe. There are moments where I can feel like, yeah, this is kind of like their own take on Garmadon. And then there are scenes where he's like, you know, they're on the earpiece and Garmadon's like, is that my brother? Tell him we're not home. And I'm like, what?
Yes, that doesn't make sense.
This is someone who is thousands of years old who's acting like a toddler.
It does not make sense.
He was born in Sons of Garmadon in a way.
No.
But does he have thousands of years of memories?
Yes.
Yeah.
It seems that way.
He does.
At least in the comic, he definitely does.
That's the issue I have, is that Garmadon is very funny. He's consistently entertaining and funny. And I like him a lot. He's probably my favorite character, or he's up there. But that charisma and that comedy does not gel with the kind of character he is. And not to jump to an inappropriate conversation to have now, because I know we haven't gotten to the comic yet, but I feel that the Garmadon comic does a far better job.
I was about to say that.
Of illustrating the Garmadon character.
The Garmadon comic... The Garamadon comic really feels like they try to incorporate like all aspects of Garamadon and everything.
Yes.
Like all of his forms he has had before.
Yes. It feels like a culmination of him as a person, and it's a very good portrayal while still being funny, while still being like, you know, threatening, while still having that clash of morality. And I really struggle, because I also like this version a lot in Crystallized, but Crystallized's version definitely feels movie light, whereas the Garmadon comic feels like the actual character. And it's very disturbing, considering spoilers, we know which one's actually true. Which one's actually canon.
Let's not head into that right now.
Hashtag the helmet lives, y'all.
All right.
But
it's I like him. Out of all my complaints in Crystallized, I don't think Garmadon really ranks, which sucks, because there are still issues with him.
I feel like
there's still moments that he's.
I think the Garamadon was super entertaining, and I liked his arc. I liked his the ending narration, tied it together pretty nicely too. I think that my problem with Garamadon is more Lloyd again. Because Garamadon he's a bit out, like he's a bit different than we'd expect him, but there's like a time skip and he's been living like on Vinny's couch, so I can kind of excuse that. But and he's super entertaining, so I wouldn't want to miss that. But
exactly.
Lloyd's reactions just make it seem weird and make it seem like they forgot about his past.
Yeah.
I mean, they're missing a scene, ideally more than one, but at least one, where Lloyd relates back to Sensei Garmadon, and they're missing a scene
Flashback.
Yes, and they're
Easily
missing a scene where Garmadon explicitly, not like the scene with Nia, but explicitly relates Christopher to Lloyd. They're missing that scene a lot, because the scene with Nia is the only time it's implied.
The ending narration too, where he goes over the roots. Lloyd are his roots, and that's how he relates Christopher to Lloyd.
Yeah.
But
Lloyd
like
needs to show his love for Garmadon and how it's like difficult to grapple with the past, and Garmadon needs to have some kind of a heart-to-heart with Lloyd about why he's actually doing all this.
Yeah, you think I'm mad about no closure with Lloyd and Harumi? I am infinitely more mad that Lloyd had no closure with Garmadon in this entire season.
But don't worry, Haley, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, in the next season of Ninjago, the new series. But yeah, I am unsatisfied with the fact that the closure that Lloyd had with Garmadon the entire season was not the I didn't need to use Oni form anyway. No, that's not it. They passed a piece of wood in the monastery. 11 years of story, ladies and gentlemen.
Dude, that
Lloyd
would...
and
that's how it ended.
And that's how it ends.
I have memed that scene so much in the stupid like ending recut videos I'm making. I have like a tick now every time I see Garmadon with that piece of wood with no expression on his face and like the blank, emotionless eyes. And it's like, this is the note they ended it on. Really? The wood.
The wood. So, Dakota and I were talking the other day about Oni Lloyd and kind of that whole arc with him and Garmadon. And a couple things were realized, and we'll Sakota and I will go into which ones we kind of realized. But the first thing I mentioned to Sakota, I was like, Sakota, they have this whole arc where Lloyd needs to use his Oni form to defeat the Overlord, right? So why did Lloyd have to do it when Garmadon was right there?
Or Wu
with his Oni form? Or I mean, Wu obviously could do it too, but Wu should have had a dragon form. But literally the whole thing was like Lloyd has to have his Oni form. That is the way to defeat the Overlord. Is just Oni form. And it's like, well, okay, Garmadon is right there. And then Dakota and I are like, okay, so it's fair. But if it's fair that maybe 2 Oni forms are stronger than 1. And then what did you say, Sakota?
Yeah, but why would Garmadon then just like pass out or fake his death? Isn't that like exactly the opposite of what you'd want to do?
They're going from 1 Oni form to 1 Oni form.
So
and then
I'm gonna do something
weirder.
that's gonna make me vomit before you elaborate even more. Let me just provide this. I'm gonna do something I hate doing. I'm gonna attempt to defend Crystallized.
Oh no.
You could say, well, had Lloyd actually stayed in the form, Garmadon would have just gotten up, which was what I expected he would have done. He obviously wouldn't just sit there, laying there while Lloyd 1v1s the Overlord. Had Lloyd actually like stuck it out, he would have done that. Now that doesn't really hold up because he could have also saved Lloyd from falling off a building.
Yeah, Sakota, continue.
That's the next point.
Oh.
He didn't even get up when Lloyd was fighting the Overlord with the dragon, right?
Yeah.
He just still laid there in the corner. And
Garmadon,
the whole balance thing we wanted the whole time with like light and dark working together would have also worked if it was just Lloyd on the dragon and Garmadon.
I would like y'all to go back to the final battle and notate when Garmadon fakes his death, and then remember that Garmadon is still on that platform, passed out,
chilling,
while Lloyd unlocks his Oni form, while Lloyd gets blasted off the temple, while the dragon fights the Overlord the entire time, destroys it, and then comes
Yeah.
down, and then all that.
never
Garmadon's just
mind.
like chilling.
The most
My defense
epic
was
battle in
short-lived.
all of Ninjago, but Garamadon's just chilling in the corner to see what's gonna happen.
My defense is short-lived. I
God.
shouldn't have even tried.
It's one of those things where it's like, what? Like, is he not even there? Like, if you go and like look at the wide angles of the whole battleground, you probably can't even see Garmadon. Like, they completely forgot about it.
See, guys,
so let me ask a question.
That's why the German version is the canon version, because in the German version, Garmadon just says, "Oh, I'm so tired, I'm gonna relax for a bit."
A well-needed rest, right?
Epic. Well, let me ask a question. Not that this excuses it at all. It doesn't.
Mhm.
Those are very valid. But Garmadon was fighting the Overlord for a pretty good while in Oni form, and it did not look like it did much of anything.
Yeah.
He was pretty ineffective. In the few seconds that Lloyd was in his Oni form, it seemed to be pretty effective. The Overlord was on the defensive. He was getting blasted. The logic is probably that just as Lloyd is, the ultimate spinjitzu master and had all this latent power because he's main character dude, that Lloyd is also the more powerful Oni as well.
It would have been cool if they actually said that in the show.
Yeah, I agree.
If
Yeah, I
that
was
was
just assuming-
actually a plot point, that he is the stronger Oni because
agree.
he is the ultimate spinjitzu master and could unlock his dragon side, and he can therefore unlock his Oni side. I'm
You're
putting
right.
my mic back down.
You're right. I agree completely. Stuff should always be explained in the show. It's not an excuse, but that's that was probably the logic up until faking dying. It was like, oh well, I'm clearly not enough. Get Lloyd to do it.
Shake my head. But no, that was a fun discussion that Dakota and I
Yeah.
had. We were just like, what the heck is happening
Why
in this
did he?
finale?
Why did he just not do anything?
I wonder if you could find him on the frame, or if he just gets deleted out.
A challenge for anyone who's watching and listening. If you find a frame of Garmadon just passed
Chilling in the
out
corner.
on the temple, just add us on Twitter or let us, or like somewhere, just add us. With the screenshot. See if you can find him.
We had
Can
a
I-
comment from BioDude15.
Oh,
Go ahead and read
okay.
it. Oh, unless there's another one.
Oh, I meant something else. We got a super chat earlier too.
Oh
Read
yes,
that
for
first.
Carlos.
Yes.
You go-
Can
you
I
wanna read it,
address that
Dakota?
one real quick?
Go for it. Go for it.
Super chat from World of Cars Entertainment for $1.99. So what was the point of Mr. F? So for that question I answered, it was very specific fan service just for me, and it's amazing. And the second question is this Echo Zane? No, it's not. Tommy said on Twitter that there was a comic supposed to come out in the Ninjago magazines that kind of explains that, like, before Jay, or when Jay went to the lighthouse, he talked to Echo Zane, and Echo Zane went on his own adventures. The comic ended up kind of being different, but the intention, I think, is not for him to be Echo Zane.
Mhm.
Well,
see, really, Mr. F exists to give the villains a chance.
Yes, to give the villains a gun.
Basically, it's just to give the villains any semblance of hope.
yeah. I mean, every scene he was in, he performed very well. I would have liked, because to give an actual answer, like, he's completely irrelevant, has zero purpose to be there, basically at all. But I could also say that for the entirety of the Crystal Council.
Yeah.
Any one of them could be swapped out with someone else, or if I was being super cynical, they really didn't need any of them, except they needed
He's
people to
just
fight.
kind of like Harumi's servant, which is kind of what Mr. E was in Sons of Garmadon
Yes.
as well. So
It's exactly the
he
same
fills
dynamic.
He fills the same role. Yeah.
It's not incongruous with his character or anything. But no, if they didn't want people for the ninja to fight, or people in the toys to hold the golden weapons, no, there's no need for really any of the Crystal Council to
You would
exist.
think that in the Harumi flashback episode they would show her like getting Mr. F, right?
That would have
You'd
been
think.
cool.
She gives him a nice big hug. Oh, I've missed you, and he just kind of stands there.
I mean, yeah, it's a thought I've had in my rare occasions where I like headcanon Ninjago, or I think about like what could have been. I'm like, what if Harumi had like nobody in her life, and she got like desperate for company, and she built a robot to keep her company, and that robot kind of ended up being like a parental figure to her, and
Yeah, that would
like
be
kind of
cool.
raising her, and he has no emotions. So she became like kind of emotionally stunted by being raised by an evil robot, or like an emotionless robot. Like, I don't know. It's just a thought I've had of what their dynamic could be.
According to the Harumi book, Mr. E joined the Sons of Garmadon. Like Kilo recruited him, and no one knows where he comes from. So he
You're kidding
his
me.
backstory is really that he has no backstory.
What on earth?
I mean, it's funny because his name is Mystery, so it's kind of
so
like
funny.
Yeah.
I'm laughing. I wanted to read the comment from BioDude15. He said, if I were to do a fan remake, I would give Wu a dragon form and have him and Garmadon defeat the Overlord, not Lloyd.
Yes, that would be cool.
I mean, I don't have an issue with it being Lloyd. He's the main character dude, but that would have been equally, satisfying as proper Lloyd done right would have been.
Would be even better if Wu and Garmadon died in that fight.
It'd be even better, yeah. I mean, to go on what you're saying, Tyler, is like maybe Lloyd is like, no, it can't be me. It has to be you. Like I trust in you or whatnot. That could be the moment where like I need need you to do this because whatnot. Because it'd have been like a moment of, this whole time he's like, you don't care about anything, but he's like, if you want to do this, like you really do care. Kind of like but that's
that makes sense.
Cool comment. So
yeah, this sucks. This continues to get worse the more I think about it.
At the end of the day, we are left with no resolve for Garmadon and Lloyd. We have resolve for Garmadon with a beautiful monologue, which is beautiful. We have Harumi. So
we may have just had the same thought.
Is it a thing now?
Yeah, we had the same thought. I want to take a poll. I want to take a cast poll.
Can we do a YouTube chat poll? That would be fun.
Can we? Without, can we do one?
Let me see. I've never done one before, but
I would love to do one.
So imagine for a moment there is not a new series coming out. Imagine for a moment that this is truly the series ending for Ninjago. And this is where we leave it. Is Lloyd and Harumi going to become a couple in the future based off of what we have seen so far?
AJ, Speedy?
No. I would rather Lloyd die, honestly.
But that's what you want.
It's not what you want, but what do you, based off of what you, ignore your heart for the moment. What does this show tell you?
It tells me that they don't know how to write these characters.
All right. So I got the poll started.
Yeah, I saw. So if you're in the YouTube chat, there's the poll. If you want to hop over, if you're on Discord,
vote.
There's a thing now.
I'll post the link maybe in the Discord real quick.
Mm-hmm.
AJ, what do you think?
Shardak says Lloyrumi will be a thing the same way Kai and Skyler is a thing.
That's unironically, that's a reasonable take.
I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just wishful thinking on my end, but it felt like it was like he forgives her, maybe he helps her do redemption, but not necessarily that they're a couple.
He's just modern puts out Garamadon is just gone. He just vanishes from the platform.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, where is he?
He only transformed into a rat.
Centaur is sitting on him right now.
AJ, what do you think based on this show?
Like,
yeah, based on what the show has been hinting at.
I don't know. Like, I hope not. I pray not. Like,
We are all in denial.
I mean, like, I want to say no because it happened like way too quickly, so I can just brush it off as like, nah, don't worry
Yeah.
about it. It's nothing. But I don't know. I feel like it might have been what they intended, but I don't want to.
Fair.
It's very hard to say because there's like not really development and it's so quick at the end. But if you think about it, like he says he still has feelings for her, and
Yes.
she says, or like the Overlord says she has feelings for him. So
Yeah, I
Always
mean,
trust
that's-
Lady
that's-
as usual.
I mean, the Overlord knows his stuff about romance. I mean,
Yes, no, the Overlord is.
I mean,
the Overlord
the
is...
Overlord. I mean, well, there's the whole theory that the Overlord is the one that said that Nia and Cole was a perfect match. Wink, wink. So I mean,
my
we don't
God.
know.
so they're not a thing then.
I mean,
Here's for us to have any kind of like discussion, we just have to look at the evidence. Like Skoda said, it's confirmed Lloyd has feelings for her. It's strongly implied / confirmed that she has feelings for him. So then what are their interactions? Lloyd was mad at her because she would not change sides. So now that she's changed sides, that has been corrected. She helps bring down the Overlord. They hold hands very briefly, or he grabs her hand. She looks embarrassed, and then she like waves to him at the end, and he waves
He also
back
said
and
like
smiles.
she's with us or something like that, right?
Yeah. We have no concrete information, but I think we have a reasonable implication for me to feel confident in voting yes. I think that is the goal, because in Lloyd's mind, that's the only thing, that's the sticking point, is that she's evil, which is a pretty big sticking point. Now that she's good, it's fine.
The
She
only
murdered her
thing
parents.
separating them is the prison cell.
so I'm looking at the poll right now on YouTube. 69% of people say yes. 31% of people say no.
Oh boy. There you go.
So now that we 70 now, cool, 70
Yeah.
30. So now that we have kind of talked about it from this angle, what do we all think about it?
I mean, it's awful.
I don't. That implication is very bad.
It's pretty gross. And keep in mind, I'm not one of the people who's like, don't put Lloyd with his abuser, because that's not how I ever like contextualize their relationship. Like, there's a difference between, in my mind, I know we're talking like kids show simplification terms, but like there is a difference from an abusive ex and an evil megalomaniacal supervillain resurrecting his dead father. Like there was no abusive relationship, because I thought there was no relationship.
Yeah.
She basically like played him. She tricked him. She faked all her emotions. That's, I think, the part people say it's an abusive relationship, because
that's fair.
She's
the only
just
reason why
manipulating him.
The only reason why there is a ship for them, or at least like that is up there, not like up there and like
is because she like
preferred,
let him
is
off.
because there is romantic history between the two of them. It was just one-sided.
Yes. Now that it's not, it's distinctly weird, because for me to like, I never even considered in all the years like them actually being a thing, and now that I'm having to wrestle with that, I have so many questions that will probably never be answered.
Yeah.
Does Harumi actually like him? When did that start? Was it always, and she just suppressed it because she was also wanted to get revenge on him? Was it because his like good nature, won her over? Was it because he tried to save her from the rubble?
Yeah.
Was it because their eyes locked at the end of Hunted? What exactly happened to make that change? Secondarily, is she really just off scot-free for like everything she did? Is she really just vibing? Like, it seems like the other Sons of Garmadon members are, so I guess it's consistent for her to be. You know,
Mhm.
if they're just vibing, like I guess it's okay. She's
But I
done
mean-
worse, but
If Harumi's crimes are okay, like why aren't like Asphira's? She's like way more like
yeah,
understandable.
that's
Or
true.
why
Mhm.
wouldn't like Vangelis be fine? Or
Because
any
she
of the
changed in the
the
last
mechanic?
minute.
Yeah, but
Oh.
Pythor. Heck,
and I
Pythor.
think that's the massive problem is that she changed for a completely selfish reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough build up for her. There wasn't enough discussion. There was just she's evil and then she was good, and there was never a moment to explore that when her change.
For a redemption arc to work, you really have to go into the psyche of the character and be
Yeah.
like, well, why did they make the decisions they made? And how are those decisions like challenged by their, their new context?
Yeah.
Do they show regret? Do they work to like atone?
You know what that moment was, to put it in like a comparison? This was the Martha moment from Batman v Superman.
You're right.
It's just like they mentioned the one thing that's like in their backstory and they immediately flip.
You're right.
That is very much a Martha moment. Why do you
That's
say that?
true.
Why'd you say that name?
Great Devourer, why did you say that name?
No, you're absolutely right. Like the foundations are horrid,
Yeah.
first of all, and then second of all, I mean, Harumi's basically an entirely different character now.
Mhm.
So for me to even begin to think about like them as a couple, it's like, well, who is Harumi now?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Also, would
like
the
in-
ninja just be okay with her chilling around? Like,
Eh.
even if Lloyd forgives her, what about like all his friends?
Well, they clearly don't care. I mean, after Lloyd was
Yeah.
like, "It's okay, she's with us."
That's fine.
No, it's
Well-
okay. The ninja just have to find their inner steel and be
No!
okay
Shut
with
up. Shut up. Why did you say that name?
it. I think it's interesting because in terms of redemption in recent stuff for Ninjago, Garmadon, interestingly enough, had an incredible redemption. At least recently, because he was the big bad of Sons of Garmadon Hunted. He had a little bit of redemption going on in March of the Oni. It wasn't fully fleshed out, but that was, he left with the promise of probably seeing him again.
Yes.
And then we got the Garmadon comic book series, which, like you said, Tyler, we got to look inside of his head and hear the thoughts that was going on, seeing his conflict internally. And he even says in the 5th issue, what do you want? Redemption.
Yeah.
And it leads to where he is now, where he's looking to become better. He's looking to have that care and compassion so that he can maybe one day return to Lloyd and Wu's side and be a better person. But we got to see all of that happen.
We got to see nothing for her.
With Harumi, we had that tiny fraction of a moment at the end of Hunted where she didn't say anything. We got to see only her expression, and then she was gone. So for her personally, it was like a moment of closure for her. Obviously, like with the whole thing with Lloyd, with other people, it was left ambiguous because she was dead. And Crystallized, none of that happened. We never got to look inside her head. We never got to kind of figure out what she thinks of Lloyd or the others or anything, literally anything. And because of that, we did not get that redemption at the end felt unwarranted. It felt unearned. It was a big moment of like, yes, they said the Great Devourer, she's finally like turning against, the person. Like we were saying with Pythor, how like, why would she ever work with Pythor? Pythor is responsible for releasing the Great Devourer. But like, that's a big thing. Well, they actually went down that route, but even farther than that with the Overlord. But it still felt empty because when that happened, there was no follow-up, period. Nothing.
Yeah.
It was just, she's with us now. It's like, what?
I can't really get invested in it because there's no window into her mind.
Yeah.
Also, that like the thing with Pythor, that there was like never any interaction about any of that, but that was the thing that like switched her. It's so weird to me. Like Harumi would know that Pythor did that, right? That's like common knowledge in Ninjago. He's in the Hall of Villainy, and she like researched deep lore stuff about Oni and Dragon, so she
That's
definitely
the
know
issue.
who released the thing that killed her parents.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me. Like, I have to stretch so much to assume she doesn't know or just wouldn't care that it
Yeah.
doesn't. It does not work
Mhm.
for me. Not in
Yeah.
any way.
Indeed. Someone mentioned in the YouTube chat about Mora's redemption in Day of the Departed was more satisfying than Harumi. I forgot that Mora has a really similar kind of thing with Harumi. How he had a last second redemption, but he didn't live. And then he had, I guess, another thing in Ninjago's story that brought him back, and he was able to like fully redeem himself.
He stick
Yeah,
to it.
yeah,
And
he played it
Day of
along
the
with the whole
Departed.
"I'm back, so I'm gonna go and take something on," but it was an act to like.
You also didn't have to grapple with the complexities of,
Yeah.
well, did he really earn it? Because, he's dead.
Yeah.
So if he wants to help out, let him. The ninja don't have to
Mhm.
forgive him.
Yeah. So.
It's difficult because I think it could be done, like I've said time and time again. Garmadon's got a redemption arc, and he's supposedly Ninjago's greatest villain, even though I don't believe that. That's how the show treats him. So Harumi is lesser tier than him. So why can't she get a redemption? Well, it's not that it's impossible, it's that it has to be worked for. Garamadon has accomplished it in very subtle ways. You got to see his complexity in Hunted. Then you got to see more of it in March of the Oni. Plus, you had the benefit of him being a legacy character, with the whole point of him being, torn between his darker nature and his love for his family. That's kind of like his whole deal. Now he's come back, and he's working to balance the scales by doing good deeds to make up for the bad deeds. And, well, will that work? It might not for everyone. Some people might forgive him. Some people might be like, no amount of good will ever erase the bad. That's the kind of interesting writing you can get with redemption arcs. Not everybody has to forgive the person, and that's how you get interesting character conflict and stories. And you can have the person being like tormented by like the things they did, and they feel bad for it, and they want to make up for it, but you can't change the past. Like, it's interesting stuff. Instead, we got none of that at all, and like, oh, okay, well, that sucks.
Yep. All right.
That's basically all I got.
Anyone
Harumi
have anything
sucks.
else to say
Yeah.
about Lloyd and Harumi in Crystallized?
Oh, I do.
What's fun?
Yes.
Go for it.
Okay, so this really bothers me, is that in Sons of Garmadon we got this whole like side plot kind of thing. Like I think it was the episode with the actual Temple of Resurrection, where they literally tell us that Harumi was just putting on a mask and putting on a front, like pretending to toy with Lloyd, like that whole beginning front. And this felt like they just like were like, nah, that was her real self,
Yeah, they're retconning kind of what they said
They've
there.
retconned that, yes.
And again, they could easily fix that by saying either the front that she was faking came later, or there is another mask that was yet to be revealed that she had to wear.
She's wearing
two.
She's
I
wearing
wouldn't even
two
do
masks.
that. I think if they're going to try to sell this, number one, they're not going to be able to. But number two, the way they could try is to just be like, over the course of Hunted, she started to have feelings for him.
Yeah, and that's
seeing
what
how
I was
good
saying.
of a person he is. So there'd be no masks. There'd be no like putting on any acts. That was, she did hate him. She did want revenge against him. But by being around him, he started to like grow on her.
I mean, I wouldn't say it would be during Hunted. I would have said it would have been during Sons of Garmadon, and then she had to like suppress all of that. And then when she was going into battle mode with Garmadon, she kind of like put it aside and lied to him. But she said that just to get to him.
I don't think you can reconcile the ending of Sons of Garmadon with her like gleefully taunting him about the death of his friends with her having grown feelings for him.
The way
maybe she could be suppressing it.
I mean, if she has feelings for him right now and she's literally saying boom while destroying his friends.
Yeah, no, fair point.
The way they might explain it, which is what I could see them do, is like she wanted to destroy him. She had planned this for years, but when she actually did it, it didn't feel as fulfilling as she thought it would, and she didn't know why. And like over time, she realized it's because she's grown attached to Lloyd or something. But it's still weak if she like still like she does awful stuff still in Crystallized. So
I don't think they will ever be able to sell it fully.
It would have to be like A grade writing in order to do it. I don't even know if a comic book series will save her.
I mean, you can't unwrite what's been written. You can try to provide additional context, but it's Crystallized is always going to be how Crystallized is, and the ingredients are rotten.
Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Speedy?
No, I'm good, I think.
Last call for Lloyd and Harumi. AJ, you got anything?
No, I'm good.
You good? You feel satisfied with your Harumi rage?
Yeah.
It's whack. I think
it's funny that 3 of our ninja now have girlfriends that were villains that turned good.
You're right. It's almost like it's a trend.
It's almost like they write females for guys.
So, bro. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Although I do want to say, I realized this was one of the things I forgot to comment on last week, or last time. No relevance to what we're talking about. I have to say it. Skyler. We didn't even address that whole thing in our last podcast.
I watched a lot of your podcast, but
we mentioned it offhandedly.
She just stands in the background most of the time.
Yeah. Her and Kai never actually being a couple.
Okay.
Do we buy that?
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. Because they never were a couple. There was nothing in the show to solidify them as a couple.
I don't.
Having a close affinity, sure. Being really close, yes. But being a couple, no.
He makes like flirty, like they flirt with each other all the time. He literally goes on like a date with her in Hands of Time. Like she's constantly showing up. They're holding hands.
Okay.
Like the subtext is about as clear as you can get for a kids show.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think any of us would have you can probably go rewatch this in our prior podcasts. I don't think any of us over the years ever looked at their interactions and were like, they're not a couple.
Dakota dropping the receipt right here.
Me. I did. I looked at all of that and were like, they're not a couple. Because the show...
You were like, they're platonic friends. Look at that epic platonic screenshot.
I didn't say that they were platonic friends. I just said they weren't dating.
I feel maybe it's like an on-off thing they had going. I could buy that.
When they addressed it in the show,
shown up in quite a while.
When they addressed it in Crystallized, I was like, yep, I'm glad they're finally doing this because they hadn't otherwise. Because the thing that defines 2 characters being a couple in the show is the show telling you.
I would say another interpretation would be the way you define 2 characters dating is by showing them dating.
Yeah, no.
And I would say we did see them dating.
I agree.
It's show don't tell.
I agree, but this series, and especially Crystallized, has not done a good job at show don't tell. They only do tell. And so, when the show did not tell, it wasn't official.
That's fair.
But Will Film was good at that. And Skyler predominantly showed up in Will Film.
And I think it was Will Film's intention. But that intention was dropped because it only came full into swing at the end of Will Film's tenure.
And it was never officially said, so fair enough.
Yeah, that's why when it happened in Crystallized, I was like, this does not surprise me.
Yeah. For me, it's like, I think in the old seasons, they clearly wanted to portray them as at least love interests and a couple in a way. But since they didn't use her at all in the Will Film era until Nia's funeral, it would not make sense to pretend like they've been a couple the whole time.
I'm sure that is the logic.
Was there.
Yeah.
So I can buy them having an on-off relationship or something that's they don't hang around a lot, but they like each other.
It's a poor crime of her, like you said, her never appearing in Wellbrine era, and so people
Yeah.
who join just don't know who she is. And if they were already dating, it would have been
Oh,
like,
yeah, I had a
wait, who
girlfriend
the
the
heck
whole
is this
time.
person?
Yeah, and you can kind of
honestly,
explain it like
for
they
older
went.
for older fans, I think it would have been hilarious if he like whipped out the yin yang coin and was like, "You'll be my yang now," or like, "You'll be my yin now," and we would have all died laughing when she's like, "Excuse me."
No, it
But
would have been funny.
I think that for older fans would have probably been more preferred. But for the sake of her not being relevant at all in Wild Brain, them being a couple made more sense.
I mean, I get it. Like, I get why, because Elder's right. They never explicitly said it, and so you can be like, "Oh, well, why hasn't she been around?" You know. So I think it's reasonable to interpret it like, well, maybe they went on a date, or like were thinking about it but never like made it official. Like that could be possible. And then Kai just went from like disaster to disaster, so they never had time to like do anything. That doesn't really work for me, considering I think a year passes in between March of the Oni and season 11, but I digress.
There's also a year passed between Seabound and
and nothing happened during those times, so I don't know. I just feel very bad for the Kyler fans who are like, you lose no matter the side of the coin you're on. Either you ship them, and so now you finally get your confirmation, only to be like they've never been dating, lol, or you don't ship them and you just want Skyler to be a well-written character and not be tied to a love interest, and you get scenes of her standing around doing nothing, saying nothing, and not contributing to the plot. I feel like there's not an outcome you come out winning if you were invested in Tyler.
I think World of Cards Entertainment says it best with his super chat. Or his or her super chat, sorry. $2. Thank you, World of Cars. World of Cars says, when the show ships Lloyrumi more than Kyler.
Yeah. Big comedy. That's all I got. We never talked about that last time. I wanted to mention it.
Ay. Is there anything else? Lloyd, Harumi, anyone?
Her sword can cut the Overlord. That's kind of interesting, but sure.
I mean, she is super strong.
Yeah.
But she also cut that hand like it was butter.
I can believe it. And then here's why I could believe it. What's the Overlord made out of?
Please.
Probably made of Vinchstone. Reasonable assumption. Either Vinchstone or just conjured material.
I mean,
like,
isn't like dark matter his essence?
I mean, it looks like he's made of rocks to me.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is, I know we keep bringing this up as a joke, but like, it's canonically accurate. Vinchstone is fragile enough to be bashed in by a wooden guitar. So a sharp, like, katana sword. Yeah, I can buy it.
It's consistent within the confines of the season.
Yeah. It's
So,
like gold. It's like, it's fragile. Golden armor in Minecraft is weak. What were you going to say, Alge?
Yeah, go for it.
No, just that this is the culmination of the greatest flaw that this current studio and set of writers could never get over, and it was how to best handle consequences for character actions. The only one that they consistently set up to be terrible and suffer as a result of their consequences. Some might say Asphera, but Asfero's mishandled in other ways. The only villain that they had to do something and inappropriately suffer, just as a straight through line, was Vangelis.
Yeah.
And every other time they have come back to a villain to introduce them, there have been issues.
Yeah.
And this is just the culmination of it. And I think we would have less issues with all of this if Garamadon, Pythor, and Harumi just did not reappear. And this was a finale containing only characters and villains that Wildbrain. Thank you. Wildbrain had concocted and handled. I guess maybe with the mechanic was also like played straight, villain all the way through, but again also has other issues.
Mechanic changes personality every season he's in.
He changed it twice this time.
First time, random 2-bit criminal. Second time, I'm gonna blindly worship a piece of code as a god that's going to give me like omnipotent powers. Third time, sexism.
Yeah.
All are fine.
But we will
pick
definitely
one.
talk about the mechanic and the Nia thing because
Oh, yeah.
he has been tied to Nia in awful ways.
Other than that, I don't really have much more to say. You guys basically covered it in the 2 hours we've been streaming. So
Sick.
yeah, it just, I think this was one of the major issues that this finale had in the handling of these 3 characters specifically. Like, if everything else was the same, these 3 character handlings needed to change the most.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're the main people.
Yeah.
Like, the Overlord might be the main villain, but I would argue more of the narrative weight was put on Harumi.
Do we all agree kind of that like bringing back Harumi was not a good idea and that it like overbloated the already pretty packed plot of the season?
I
Yes.
disagree. I think
Okay.
I think that bringing Harumi back was a fine idea. It was made awful by its execution because there was a way to do it and they did not do it, and that is what inherently made it absolutely terrible.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
But what I was trying to say is like if they wouldn't have even tried to bring back Harumi, they would have had so much more time to focus on the other things they like had to deal with, like the Overlord, like Lloyd, like Garmadon, maybe Nia some more, hopefully.
I mean, I think that there is some closure that is warranted between Lloyd and Harumi, that this was a good time to do it because the feelings that, or not the feelings, but at least some of the stuff that would come with closure with Harumi would work well with Garmadon. And that is like a good kind of like setup that they could have done. But again, it was wasted on episode like 18, stuff like that. AJ, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say the same thing as Elder, just like it's not necessarily a bad idea, it's just bad execution, and they didn't really make the most of her coming back. Like, I was never opposed to her coming back, it's just if they ever did bring her back, I'd want it to be written good, and she just wasn't. So,
I mean,
yeah.
her coming back at all like undermines all of her character from Sons of Garmadon and Hunted. Like, it was a stupid idea.
Yeah, it ruins the character arc from Hunted, like, or at least like her ending, at least bringing her back as a villain.
I would say, well, read the super chat first, and then I'll go.
Okay, Superfan Go, thank you for your super chat for $5. They say Lloyrumi will be the new uncomfortable canon ship alongside Wusako, except Lloyd is the protagonist and harder to ignore. That is true. I also like to point out that Misako and Garmadon did not acknowledge each other once in this entire season. Anyway.
She got to hang out with Cole, though.
Yeah, she wasn't hung out with
Cole.
Cole.
Cole Misako confirmed.
Anyway, as we were.
The thing with Harumi is, I will say, Harumi being the Vinstone buyer and being alive and the drama with Lloyd, it is more interesting on paper than the alternative, which would be Pythor being the Vinstone buyer. And the reason that is the case is solely because Pythor has not been seen in many years. The last time he was seen kind of sucked. So if they were going to do a reveal that he was alive the whole time and pulling strings, it'd just be like, well, we kind of knew he was alive. We saw him walk away. That whole plot was stupid. We hate Day of the Departed. Now that's just swapping them out in the context of the story that exists. Realistically, they could just write a new story that would have better accommodated Pythor, and I think that would have been the least destructive way to do it, because bringing Harumi back was a high-stakes gamble. It was the more interesting concept, but you really needed a degree of writing nuance to make it work and make it compelling and make it good, and they failed on every aspect and ended up damaging not just Lloyd but her own character, the prior season she was in, and the narrative for this season. So no, it was not worth it. IMO. I don't think the idea is fundamentally flawed, but if I could switch it out, I would in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
All right. So now, Haley, as we try and wrap up, let's ask Meso again if he has any last words, because he said he had nothing else to say, but clearly has.
You give me a prompt, and I
Yeah,
will
he'll
come
just
up
keep
with
going,
stuff.
yeah.
It's difficult to come up with stuff in a vacuum.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I have one last thing that I want to say before I'm done. And this is regarding Lloyd. Is that this season I wanted to make, and I probably still will make, a trailer using the music to Stranger Things, the trailer. It's like what's it called? Separate Worlds. That music. The Worlds Apart remix that they made. I wanted to make a trailer where it showcases all of the, or not all the seasons, but big moments in each season or throughout Ninjago that has led to this moment with Lloyd. There's a lot of things that come together with this. It's, obviously Garmadon's a big part of it. There's Harumi, there's the Oni and Dragon, there's the Green Ninja Prophecy, there's all of this stuff is accumulating in this season. And I was so excited to make this trailer because I knew that it was all coming to a head. And then I was wrong. None of that stuff ended up being important. Period. And it is absolutely deflating because it's 11 years of story with Lloyd, and Lloyd doesn't recognize a second of it. And it feels like, okay, so it's Lloyd becomes unrecognizable in that sense. And I think, Speedy, you feel the same way, where you're like, okay, Lloyd is dealing with all these things, but I don't really recognize his character anymore.
Yeah, he felt like a stranger this season, which was really bizarre to have to witness.
Mm-hmm. For like a season this big for Lloyd is just tragic.
I mean, what are you? I would argue they've written him into a corner for so many years. Yeah, they could build on stuff from the past, but it wouldn't have any kind of a narrative through line. There's been too many years with nothing. Like, if they try to have him do like the Garamadon arc, well, we had years of nothing. If we had him try to do that, I want to become the master arc, well, they dropped that in 2018. They tried to do the Harumi arc, but they had to bring her back. Like, there has been no narrative through line for him for 4 years.
Well, then it can be something building off of that, where he doesn't know who he is, and all of this is coming together, all of these people and whatnot, and that could be like a big moment of who is he.
Literally,
because
this should have been about him finding his inner balance.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because they kind of hinted at it. Like, I think Garamadon said something about he needs to conquer his inner self to change his outer self.
Yeah.
But then they dn't do that.
Yeah.
He didn't need
like,
the Oni form.
His whole life, he's been being told what to do from other people, who he is.
He was raised as a weapon. I'm always saying that.
Yeah.
Lloyd's entire thing is that he doesn't have a life and that he's only ever been a weapon of other people.
Yeah,
that's true.
He took his childhood, and his whole life was written for him by destiny.
Yeah. And I think that this would have been a really good season where it's like destiny is now telling him to do something, and if he doesn't agree with it, then who is he in that moment? And
I would love that.
It's a beautiful, because like you said, Tyler, like he's had a lot of things in his life that kind of led to nothing. His character has been, I am the leader, for a lot of the time. And I think one thing that has barely been touched on in Ninjago is that he is a kid still. Like, he has an adult body, but he is still a child who sacrificed his childhood for being a hero, and he has matured beyond that, but has he? Sort of thing. That question mark of what are things that Does he ever wish he wasn't the Green Ninja? Has he ever wished he's not the leader? Has he ever wished for a normal life? That sort of stuff. Like Harumi, he's like, man, I'm actually in love with someone. Oh no, wait, she's angry at me because I'm the Green Ninja. That sort of thing. Like it's like all of these kind of threads that they could pull at to create to something bigger. But these are things that could be built on based off of a whole bunch of history.
No, I agree.
And this
Someone should
season,
write a book about that.
I know. So someone should write a book about that. I think it would be really good.
Yeah.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But yeah, it just
I
feels
agree with
flat when Lloyd's anger and Lloyd's motivations and everything is built on things that, number one, are factually inaccurate, like Oni, and also has nothing to be based on from the past. On a season that everything else is coming from the past, Lloyd feels like he's only living in the present.
Of all the characters, I would say have no room to go, or they have Lloyd's not one of them. There's plenty of things they could do.
Oh, 100%.
Which is why it's frustrating. They consistently do none of them.
Reset him.
Yeah.
Or reset him. Like
Mhm.
I don't know who he is at this point. I don't know what his personality is. I couldn't even tell you, and that's frustrating because he's the main guy.
Yeah. Josh said question his leadership would have fit really well into Hand of Time because he kind of had that. There was a moment in the beginning of the season where they're like, we're being replaced, and Lloyd was like obsessed with it for like 2 lines of dialogue. And I'm like, that's
it would
a cool
also
plot point.
tie into Hunted, where he had to try to find his motivation to lead people, and where they kind of pretended like leading people is his actual power.
You guys remember at the beginning of the season, he decided not to be a ninja because he didn't want to have responsibility for other people? You know, that was really interesting.
Remember when I had hope for Crystallized? Oh, I love that. Those were the days. Man, that episode was really good. It had good voice acting performance. Funny about Jay's beard, though.
Remember that was the so promising. Hey AJ, no, Nia's so great. We're actually might get a cool thing with her this season.
Water goddess Nia saving the day. Oh,
pain.
It's sad going back to watching those reacts and seeing our faces back in the day.
Yeah,
and how innocent
wow, this
we
Nia
were.
episode's so good. It's beautiful.
I remember showing my friends like the reacts, like that specific moment, and they were looking at me, and it's like you can see the moment where the life just drains from your eyes. It's like it's so miserable, and I'm like, yep.
Epic.
So sad.
Yeah.
How are we doing, y'all? Temperature check. We're all doing okay?
Yeah, I mean, we should probably...
We are still all good, y'all. We're all still saying, again, we love Ninjago, and we're saying all this stuff because we love the property and the franchise so much.
Yeah. I love what it could be, what it once was. It's just, it feels like that's increasingly a time in the past. You know, I reminisce on these things, and I'm like, oh, I remember the good writing for Lloyd. When was that again? 4 years ago. And I'm like, oh.
Look, I don't mind him in the Wild Brand stuff. I just like that he's not like in the forefront all the time, and he's just kind of able to exist and quip and stuff like that is fine. But
I don't mind him. It's just, it's not exactly interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
but he's not the focus character.
He's not the focus
character. Wild Brain seasons,
except for Ice Chapter, but that's a different story.
It's whatever.
AJ, any last thoughts?
No.
You good? Speedy?
I think I'm good.
Cool.
I don't want to be here another 4 hours.
That's fair.
You could.
Speedy, thank you again so much for joining us today. For our bringing insight to Lloyd as the Lloyd expert of the community. I think it's really telling that the Lloyd expert was saying, "I don't recognize Lloyd." That's
the most
tragic.
depressing thing. Yeah.
I said this. I don't remember who I said this to, but I said it's really telling if I'm the one complaining about Lloyd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I never complain about Lloyd. I complain a lot, not about him.
Not about him. Man.
Not about him. And now suddenly, I remember, was it Ulti said somewhere that Ulti wasn't looking forward to watching Crystallized because I said it was bad and I didn't like it.
Yeah, that's like
he was like, if Haley says it's not good.
Oh no.
Yeah, we've tried
to down the same venue.
We've tried to get Ulti on these like episodes for people who might want to hear his take, but like he has general busyness in his life and also just all the talk about Crystallized. he's not exactly chomping at the bit to watch
Yeah.
and discuss it. It kind of was a massive buzzkill.
Yeah. R.I.P.
Okay.
R.I.P.
So we
Well, thank you so much, Speedy. Oh, go for it.
No. Once you're done, we have 2 super chats.
What, 2 super chats?
Yes.
Epic.
Yes, Treycar with $2. Thank you so much. Treycar says, Harumi is cringe. Akita is best girl.
We're gonna be here another 3 hours.
Oh yeah, remember when Akita was a thing in this show?
2 wrongs
Yeah.
do not make a right.
Remember
So-
at Brick Fair when I screamed at like 3 a.m. because we had this conversation?
Yes. Yeah. Akita's your second favorite character, right?
No!
And then our second super chat from World of Cards Entertainment. I thank you again for $2. Says when the GIF have ninja versus council non-dragon form. I think what he's trying to say is there are new GIFs that have been released on Jiffy, and also I think you can see them on Twitter of the ninja doing some cool stuff. They're fixing their names. There's some cool like battles between the ninja and like their kind of rivals in the council, and some of those fights are better than fights that we got in the actual show.
That's very depressing on a
Mhm.
number of levels.
Yeah, interesting.
I hate everything.
Mm-hmm. We love
Okay.
life. Okay, I think that is where we're going to wrap it for the day. We are going to do another one of these kind of in-depth conversations about the Overlord and the finale and looking at the lore. For that one, I'm going to go ahead and announce we're going to have super special guest Joshua Deck join us for that one.
Oh,
Talk about lore and see if we can figure out some or talk it through what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, et cetera, et cetera. We're gonna be looking into that. And
How
and
about
other
instead
things.
of that, you do an episode about what does make sense? It could probably be shorter.
I mean, if we do that, it'll be 5 minutes long.
There you go.
Right?
I mean, there's some stuff that does make sense.
There is a little.
We have to be fair.
Yeah. That's why I said that does make sense and doesn't make sense. It's both. We're gonna
Yeah.
do a little bit of both.
Epic.
But yeah, we'll be doing that at some point in the future. We're gonna have another podcast about the Garamadon series, the comic book series in full. And then obviously keep an eye out for an announcement for the Garamadon comic book contest, which is coming soon. So yeah. Thank y'all for joining for NINJAGOcast. LJ, unless you've already done it, hit the music.
Music hit.
Yay! Well, that's it for NINJAGOcast today. Stay tuned for more. Obviously, thank you again to Speedy for joining us. Thank you, Speedy.
Thank you for having me.
But until next time, I have been Sensei Wolf.
I'm LJ.
I am Meso.
I'm Sakota.
I'm AJ.
And R.I.P. Lloyd.